Part 8. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 71. Okay, now can you tell me the reason why the adventurer is chasing you? After entering the dungeon, there were gradually fewer people around. After descending several floors in a row, you asked the girl behind him, who lowered his head and said nothing. Lily was just silent and didn't say anything. Sorry. I'm sorry. This sentence should be said to that adventurer, not to me. You stopped and turned around to look at the little adventurer following him. You stole his stuff, right? How did you know? Lily was shocked by Yu's words. She didn't know how the other party found out about this. Do you still need to think about such things? It's all written on your face. Yu smiled and shook his head and continued to move forward. Since you know, then why does Lord Yu come to help Lily? Lily is just a bad boy. Well, that guy is quite annoying anyway. You deserve it if you steal something, Yu said lazily, holding the back of his head with both hands. As for why I'm helping you, maybe, I'm a bad boy too, right? Of course, the more important thing is that I got a supporter who can use it for free for 3 days. Master Yu, you are really cunning. I am just a supporter of Master Yu and I don't provide other strange services. Don't worry, I'm not interested in a little girl like you. I already have someone I like. Glancing at Lily from the corner of his eye, Yu curled his lips and said so disdainfully. Ugh, that's right. Lord Yu likes girls like Lady Riveria. Well, do you want to know about me? Yu was stunned for a moment and stared at Lily with interest. Well, Master Yu's public confession has spread throughout Orario. Ah, that's what it looks like. Yu rubbed his chin. Maybe his existence had already fallen into the eyes of the gods, right? Of course, they probably just laughed it off as a joke if they knew about it. After all, who let himself be just an unknown LV1 adventurer? They just sighed and made fun of me, a toad, for wanting to eat swan meat. It's a pity that they never dreamed that my toad had already eaten it. No. Isn't this calling yourself a toad? Thinking that Yu usually reacted like this, he shook his head. Come on Lily, let's go to the 10th floor today. Go to the 10th floor to serve as bait for Master Yu. Lily was obviously frightened, while Yu rolled his eyes. What do you mean by being used as bait for me? I obviously saved you in time every time. Ugh, Master Yu has indeed always regarded me as bait to lure monsters. I told you it's not bait anymore. You have to understand my strange physique that I can't meet monsters. The two people seemed to be very close to each other as they were bickering, but their steps towards the 10th floor were not slow. Is the relationship close? Although Mr. Yu is very stingy and annoying, and he even uses himself as a bait. But it was strange, the feeling in his heart became more and more strange. I obviously think that adventurers are not good people, that's how they are, selfish adventurers. He is just one of them. He asked me to be his free laborer for another 3 days. It's disgusting to do such a dangerous job as luring monsters. By the way, Master Yu, where is your weapon? Lily asked curiously without seeing Yu's iconic long sword on his back. One was stolen by the supporter who replaced you without realizing it. Yu put on a heartbroken look and said with such a sad face. Was stolen? Are you an idiot? Such a big sword was stolen. That was my intended prey. You actually let others steal it. But it doesn't matter. I changed to a prop that suits me better than that sword. After all, I am a magician. Yu said this and threw the fire stick to Lily. This thing looks like a fire stick, right? Looking at what Yu threw to her, Lily put her hand on her forehead and said this in a helpless tone. What a fire stick! This is a treasure I bought for $1 million. This is a magic staff. Do you understand the magic staff? 1 million. Lily screamed in surprise, and Yayuz raised his head and raised his chest as he spoke. He was not exaggerating, or the number he said was much smaller. This staff is more than just 1 million. Let's not talk about the body of the staff. Just the shell made by the god of craftsman Hephaestus is worth at least tens of millions. Well, when you think about it, this figure is a desperate debt. Yeah, you couldn't help but regret it a little, so why did he act so cool in the first place, something like paying for a deal? But I'm so good at pretending that I have to finish it even if I'm kneeling. Sure enough, you already know that you have been deceived, such a bitter and resentful look. Seeing Yayu's confused look, Lily muttered and returned the fire stick to Yayu. Okay, let's not talk about this anymore and let's get down to business. When Yayu said this, Lily's face suddenly fell. Ugh, Mr. Yayu is really cruel. Is it so popular that I can be used as a bait? Don't worry, I'm not far away and no one will die. How can you feel relieved after saying that? Lily yelled so reluctantly, but still obediently left Yayu and walked towards the depths of the maze. Why is this happening? Such a strange feeling. Walking alone in the thick fog, thinking so puzzledly. Nothing will happen to me, I am so sure. It's really ridiculous. This is the 10th floor of the dungeon. I don't know how many adventurers were buried here. But there was no feeling of panic or worry at all, because he would definitely protect his own safety. Maybe, this feeling is trust, right? Trust. It's really a ridiculous word. The roar of a monster came to my ears. It was an orc holding a huge wooden stick in his hand. Just as it roared and smashed the wooden stick towards Lily, a crystal ice pick shot out from the thin thick fog. He came over and pierced its heart easily. Yes, then, the hunting has begun. Yayuzai walked slowly from the fog, with a smile on his face that made Lily very reassuring. Although it's ridiculous, but it's not a bad feeling. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 72. It looks like the monsters on the 10th floor are not that good either. Yayu walked over slowly as he spoke. His right hand held the fire stick in Lily's eyes, and in his left hand there were several crystal ice picks floating in the air. Master Yayu, if you behave like this, the monster's magic crystal will be frozen to pieces. As Lily said this, the huge orc standing in front of her shattered into pieces. However, Lily was a little surprised that the monster's magic crystal was not broken by the cold. Why? It's simple, because when I fired the ice cone, I had already cancelled the magic power. Yayu's magic power is too overbearing. No matter how hard he controls it, maintaining the magic power will cause huge damage. However, he can just cancel the output of his own magic power at the right time. After a period of use, Yayu also figured out the characteristics of his power. The first stage is the biting cold, which is no different from ordinary ice-based magic. It gradually paralyzes the enemy's movements and nerves. Then there is a complete freeze, cutting off all vitality of the enemy. And in the end, there was complete structural destruction under absolute zero. It can be said that Yayu's magic has nothing to do with frost at the third step. At that moment, Yayu's magic attribute is directly shattered and destroys all magic. But if the magic power is cancelled, how will the ice cone be launched? Lily tilted her head and asked, while Yayu showed a faint smile. It's very simple. After his words fell, another half-orc roared and rushed out of the thick fog. Then in front of Lily, Yayu made an action that made the girl involuntarily hold her forehead. Yayu held one of the ice picks suspended above his palm, and then threw it in the direction of the orc. This time Lily also saw clearly. The ice pick did not pierce the orc's heart, but was thrown directly and hit the orc, freezing it on top. Then the cold air was released and directly froze the orc into ice cubes. Although the destructive power is still very strong, but why does it feel so weak? Looking at the second orc in front of her that turned into broken ice, Lily muttered and went to collect the magic crystals. As long as you can kill the enemy, it's fine. As for the method, it doesn't matter. And this way, you can avoid destroying the monster's magic crystal, which is great. Tossing the ice pick up and down in his hand, Yayu curled his lips and said nonchalantly. You city folk are really good at playing. Unable to help but roll their eyes, the two of them continued to fumble forward in the thick fog. It's a great harvest. A few hours later, Yayu narrowed his eyes with satisfaction as he watched the number of magic stones counted by Lily. If you keep earning money at this rate every day, maybe it won't be long before you can change Hestia to a better place to live, right? Yes, a great harvest. Lily muttered with resentment, but it was a pity that she couldn't get any dividends from so many magic stones here. Really, it was obviously a monster that he risked his life to attract. Okay, let's go, it's time to go back. Yayu said this and put away the baggage, and rolled out nearly half of the magic stone with rough movements. Hey, they all fell out, Master Yayu. Well, these are yours. Hey, didn't you say you won't pay the fees for 3 days? Yes, what you don't pay for 3 days is the cost of being a supporter. As for these, they are just dividends. Yayu said nonchalantly, holding his share of the magic stone and turning around with a chuckle, leaving Lily alone in shock. What, a stupid guy. After a long while, Lily lowered her head, quickly packed up the magic stones on the ground, and then chased Yayu's back. The two people left the 10th floor and headed towards the ground. However, when they reached the 8th floor, something happened. This is different from what we promised, Lily. We agreed to bring this guy to our side. Why did we bring him down to the 10th floor? At the corner of the cave with complex terrain, a gloomy sound sounded. Yayu stopped in his tracks, and Lily's face suddenly turned pale. Looking in the direction from which the sound came, there was a shabby adventurer at the entrance of the cave room. The head has the characteristics of a beast similar to Lily, and it seems to be bear-like ears. Well, your friend. Yayu tilted his head and asked Lily beside him. Yes, we are friends with her. We are close friends who talk about everything. The shabbily dressed middle-aged orc narrowed his gloomy eyes and looked at Lily, laughing so wildly. Then he threw out something he had hidden behind his back. Lily let out a low scream when a lumpy object rolled onto the ground in front of her. Killer ants. It was a half-dead killer ant whose lower body had been chopped off to facilitate transportation. The monster's body was covered with lacerations and purple blood was spilled. It opened and closed its mouth repeatedly, swinging its only remaining arm as if struggling in pain. Before we catch up with our friends, could you please hand over all the things you have on you? I heard that you have the magic weapon produced by Hephaestus. With two sounds, 2 more pieces of the killer ant's upper body were thrown over. Behind the middle-aged orc, 2 more adventurers appeared at other passages, imitating his actions. A total of 3 block-shaped ants that were thrown over made a curse-like groan in the center of the cave that echoed endlessly. What is this, a noise attack? Yayu blinked and asked Lily with a surprised look on his face, causing the frightened girl to almost lose her balance and fall to the ground. Don't be joking at this time, Master Yayu. When killer ants are in a dying state, they will emit special pheromones, which are special rescue signals that can call their companions. A lumpy ant that is still alive is equivalent to a time bomb that summons an army of insects. Oh. Yayu made a sound of interest, but Lily was not so relaxed. Master Yayu, don't be so relaxed. Your magic power should be running out, right? Even you are in great danger against the ant army. The two of them destroyed countless monsters on the 10th floor. Lily marveled at Yayu's magic reserve, but it had basically reached its limit, right? Master Yayu is just a LV1 adventurer, and this level of magic consumption is already exaggerated. Magic? Yayu raised his eyebrows. He had indeed consumed a lot of magic power today, but his magic power reserve was just a drop in the bucket. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 73. I'm sorry, Mr. Yayu, I was the one who dragged you down. Looking at the killer ants that were gradually surrounding her, Lily had a bitter smile on her face. Can you tell me who these guys are before you apologize? Yayu touched Lily's head and asked. They are members of the Samo Familia, including me. Lily spoke slowly and closed her eyes, the unpleasant memories flooding back again. Although the Samo Familia is Orario's big family, all the people in the family are just lunatics, a group of lunatics who chase and long for money. They gathered together because they longed for Soma's divine wine, and they made money at all costs just to drink Soma's divine wine again. In order to survive in such an environment, Lily had to make money. However, as a supporter, she was bullied and slandered by adventurers and did not get the revenge she deserved. As for the dependents, the weak will have their money taken away even if they make it. Lily gave up her title as a member of the family and pretended to be an ordinary person, finally finding a job and finally achieving a stable life, but the good times didn't last long. The worst happened, Lily's happiness was destroyed by her companions from the Summa Familia. I don't know where they got it from, and the obsessed adventurers broke into Lily's house and robbed her of her money. Her residence was also completely destroyed. The originally gentle and friendly old flower shop couple immediately kicked Lily out. Lily still clearly remembers the look in their eyes that looked like they were looking at something dirty. With no support and no place to go, this is the sad current situation of a girl named Lily. For money, they can do anything, even if it means their own lives, they don't care. More and more killer ants were surrounding them, but the faces of the three adventurers standing there remained motionless. Only the pale-faced Lily could correctly understand the obsession with money and the madness of people bound by the divine wine. Are you done talking nonsense? Be good and show off all your belongings and money. You don't want to be surrounded by these people when you are entangled with us, do you? This cave room has a total of 4 entrances and exits. 3 of the passageways were occupied by 3 adventurers, and the remaining one was gradually surrounded by monsters. Since you hate Soma, how about joining my family? Why? Lily didn't react, so Yayu continued with a smile. How about joining Hestia's familia and becoming my companions? Originally, Lily was so moved that she didn't know what to say, but the second half of Yayu's words immediately made the girl roll her eyes. As you can see, I need someone to help me pull out monsters. You 2 bastards, do you want to die together? Seeing that Lily and Yayu didn't react at all, the middle-aged orc who led them was also panicked. He is indeed not afraid of death, but this does not mean that he wants to die. His ultimate goal was to get Yayu's money through intimidation. But if the other party continues to delay like this, I am afraid that the final outcome will be that we will become a meal for man-eating ants here. What, are you already feeling scared? Why don't you think about the worst consequences before doing this? Yayu smiled nonchalantly, and his calm expression angered the middle-aged orc. You guy, you don't have any magic power anyway, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have been standing there without taking action. After handing over everything you have on you, please help us stay behind. The 3 adventurers bravely rushed towards Yayu. Lily bravely stopped Yayu and took out a long sword that exuded a strange light from under his cloak. Demon, devil sword. The 3 adventurers were immediately startled. The magic sword is a sword with magical abilities. You can use the magic attached to the sword without chanting, but the number of times it can be used is limited, usually only in single digits. Don't come over. Otherwise, we'll die together. Lily's shoulders were shaking, but despite this, she still clenched the magic sword in her hand and pointed it at the three men in front of her. How powerful is this girl's magic sword? She can only kill the goblins. Bulls, give it to me. The middle-aged orc at the head said this, grabbed his companion and threw it towards Lily. No. Don't come over. Lily screamed and closed her eyes, and then the magic sword in her hand flashed with a dazzling light. The adventurer who was thrown over screamed, and immediately fell down, covered in charred black. Boss, what do you want to do? Now that you know I am your boss, then die for me. The middle-aged orc showed a ferocious smile, then grabbed his collar and threw him out. Like the adventurer, he was also hit by Lily's magic sword and fell down screaming. At the same time, the brilliance of the magic sword in Lily's hand dimmed and disappeared completely. Ha ha, I guessed it right. Even if you have the magic sword, you only have a few times to use it. Oops, what should I do now? Dropping the magic sword that had lost its magic power in her hand, Lily stumbled back several steps and bumped into Yayu. Master Yayu, maybe we are going to die together. It's all Lily's fault. It was Lily who hurt you. If Lily wanted to harm me, she would have brought me to their encirclement from the beginning, right? Yayu shook his head in amusement, touched the girl's head, then walked forward and looked at the middle-aged orc with a sinister smile. Don't worry, just like before, this time I will help you solve this problem again, and then, Lily, you will belong to my Hestia Familia. Stop pretending, you are at the end of your strength. The middle-aged orc roared and rushed forward. Yayu just looked at the distorted adventurer indifferently and gently stretched out a finger. The cold murderous intent spread to the entire cave in an instant, and Lily shivered involuntarily and hugged her body tightly. In the next second, the entire cave turned into a world of ice and snow. The middle-aged orc who rushed towards Yayu, including the man-eating ants screaming noisily around him, everything froze. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, let whatever you are attached to vanish into thin air. Yayu murmured so softly, and then waved his hand. All the ice sculptures covering the entire cave were shattered into pieces and turned into ice flakes flying all over the sky. It's beautiful. Looking at Yayu's back standing among the flying debris, Lily couldn't help but admire, and for a moment she had forgotten even the cold. Tears fell uncontrollably from the corners of the girl's eyes. They were tears of joy to celebrate her new life and finding her destination. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Shang. Chapter 74. Hestia's reaction to Lily's joining was very strange, and yet you couldn't tell whether his home god was happy or unhappy. But after accepting Lily, Hestia pulled the girl aside and the two whispered for a long time. The specific content is unknown, but it seems that the two girls are getting along well, and Yayu is relieved. Now there are 3 members of the family, and we are one step closer to making Hestia's name famous throughout the world. The dungeon strategy is gradually on the right track, and Yayu is getting closer and closer to his ideal of saving money to buy a house. In the morning, I cultivated a relationship with Reveria, teased Ace, and then headed to the dungeon. Yayu originally thought everything would go on like this until that day came. Today the Loki Familia will set out again for an expedition to the underground city. Because it was the last day to meet, Yayu woke up early and went to the agreed place at 4 in the morning. However, on the wall of Orario City, Yayu did not see Reveria and Ace, but met Loki, the main god of the Loki Familia. Has it been discovered? I wasn't surprised, maybe I thought it was natural. Loki is not a fool. He has naturally discovered the abnormality of the most valued child in the family a long time ago. Perhaps the reason why he ignored it for so long is because he hopes Reveria can make her own choice and end this incorrect relationship, right? I guess there is no need to explain why I came here today. Unusually careless, Loki stared at Yayu very seriously. Ah, I roughly guessed it. I also want to explain this matter to you. Yayu touched the tip of his nose and said with a chuckle. I don't understand why you are so confident. Do you think I might agree to your relationship with Reveria? Loki narrowed his eyes and felt a frightening sense of oppression all over his body. You have only two choices. One is to leave Hestia's familia and join our Loki familia. In that case, no one will object to the two of you being together. I will even serve as a wedding venue for you and Reveria. Witness. What about the second one? The second one? Of course, leave Reveria's side, and you two will never see each other again. Loki said this. She originally thought that Reveria could control her emotions very well and knew that long-term pain is worse than short-term pain. But what she didn't expect was that Reveria was unknowingly fell into it. While sighing about the charm of Yayu, and thankful that Isai didn't fall into it, Loki hurried over to meet Yayu, intending to give Yayu an ultimatum. Now he, the Lord God, must personally intervene to put an end to this wrong love affair between the two of them. Okay, now tell me your choice. If you can join the Loki familia, I will very much welcome you. Seeing Yayulaji say this, the latter shook his head gently. This choice is impossible. You know better than me, don't you? Indeed, I apologize for that. Yayu was a little surprised that Loki would take the initiative to apologize to him. But Yayu also understood that the other party's attitude was also telling him that it was imperative for him to leave Reveria. Then, since you are unwilling to join our Loki familia, then please don't meet Reveria again from now on. I reject. Yayu's words without hesitation made Loki almost cursed. Have you figured out the situation? Don't think you'll take it for granted that I'm being polite. I'm not begging you here, I'm warning you. What does it have to do with me? You. Do you want me to launch a war game against the Hestia familia? I tell you, destroying the Hestia familia is just a thought on my part. War games. Loki's angry words made Yayu think of something. He naturally knew what the war game was. It was a large-scale game between the familia and the familia that applied to the guild, and the two sides set their own rules. It was witnessed by the gods, and the conditions for failure were the customization is negotiated and customized by both dependents. I won't accept it. I don't want Reveria to forcefully leave the Loki familia in this way. Reveria's feelings for the Loki familia are the same as my feelings for the Hestia familia. I won't do anything to embarrass her. Yayu said so softly that Loki almost turned his nose in anger. You bastard! You talk like you're sure to win. Are you so confident that you can defeat our entire Loki family in a war game by yourself? Did you know that there are 4 LV6 adventurers in our family? Do you know what 4 LV6 adventurers are? Have no idea. Yayu shook his head honestly. I don't know if you dare to be so arrogant. If you really play a war game with our Loki familia, I guarantee that my children can easily remove the Hestia familia and drive your main god back to the heaven a breeze. So I said, I don't want Reveria to leave the Luyi familia and stay with me in this way. You guy, do you even understand human speech? Loki was almost about to collapse. She felt that she had no way to communicate with the stubborn, cow-like guy in front of her. Since you are stubborn, don't blame me for being ruthless. The Hestia familia is just waiting to play a war game with our Loki familia. After leaving such cruel words, Loki turned around and left, but before taking 2 steps, he was choked by Ace, who jumped in from outside the city wall and fell to the ground. You said you should speak carefully. Is this what you said, Lord God? Ace complained so dissatisfiedly that Loki danced for a while. I've said it calmly. But this guy is a bastard. What else do you want me to do? Loki shouted angrily, and with a long sigh, Reveria slowly floated up from the city wall. Rivalia. Seeing the woman he liked appear, Yayu called her name so gently. I'm sorry Yayu, let's separate. This is a good thing for both you and me. But Reveria lowered her head, not daring to look into Yayu's eyes, and said this rather cruelly. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Shang. Chapter 75. Are these words uttered by your will? After listening to Riveria's words, you did not show any surprise. He still looked at the elf girl standing in front of him tenderly and asked softly. Stop being so stubborn, we have no results. Riveria closed her eyes in pain, not daring to look at Yayu's eyes again. She was afraid that she would once again be unable to bear it and reveal her true feelings to the man in front of her. The outburst of emotions that have been suppressed for a long time is like poison, so sweet that people cannot let go. I see, what stands between us are the rules set by the gods after all. It is enough to know this. Sighing so lightly, Yayu raised his head and looked at the sky. Hey, what do you want to do? Listening to Yayu talking to himself, Loki had some bad thoughts in his mind. Could this guy be thinking? Startled by the audacity of his own idea, Loki shook his head and dismissed the possibility from his mind. How is it possible? This kid is not an idiot. He should know what it means to do that, right? That is a worse situation than going to war with the Loki familia. Don't worry, I won't go to war with the Loki familia, and I won't use any coercive means to make Riveria stay by my side. Yayu emphasized to Loki for the third time, but the latter didn't even bother to say anything in rebuttal. Forget it, as long as you are happy. Let's go, Ace and Riveria, to prepare for the expedition. Logically speaking, Isai and Riveria left behind her. Only then did Yayu remember that today seemed to be the day when the Loki familia would launch another expedition. Because today was a day off, Yayu did not go to the dungeon. He returned to the church and asked Hestia a question. Where can I find many gods? Hestia felt a little strange about Yayu's question, but she didn't think much about it. Because the gods are very lazy guys, they usually stay in their own places. However, they still get together every 3 months, which is usually used to determine the title of the adventurer whose flagship is upgraded to LV2. Hestia said while holding her chin. If I remember correctly, it seems that today is the day when the meeting will be held. However, only gods with LV2 adventurers in the family can attend that meeting, so I am not qualified to participate in the meeting yet. Hestia said this, and Yayu nodded in understanding. So where is this meeting taking place? The 30th floor of the Tower of Babel. Hey, what is Yayu asking for? It's nothing, I'm just curious. Then Hestia, I'll go out first. Hey, didn't you agree to rest today? Seeing Yayu leaving in a hurry, Hestia tilted her head in surprise, not knowing what he wanted to do. The so-called Conference of the Gods, ultimately speaking, is a gathering planned by some gods to relieve boredom. After accumulating a certain amount of strength and territory for his own faction, familiar clan, a god can easily forget the hard work of living and enter a period of decline. When they became idle, they learned to hang out with old friends from the same hometown and talk about trivial matters to pass the time. To put it bluntly, it's just ordinary chatting, but the point is that the unrestrained gods hold a party every once in a while. Later, the number of people participating in such gatherings increased day by day, and the scale of the gatherings also expanded. As time went by, the purpose of the activities changed. It changed from just chatting to sharing the latest information and exchanging opinions, so the gathering was no longer just a communication among the families, but became an event that cooperated with the guild and affected the entire city. Although it is almost in name only, the Assembly of Gods has been recognized and evolved into a kind of advisory body, with certain power and influence even involving the adventurer group. Awarding titles is also a part of the process and has now become a routine. I heard that there are a lot of children being upgraded this time. Well, I also heard that it's going to be a great harvest. It's really exciting. The 30th floor of the Tower of Babel, the venue for the Assembly of Gods. The structure of this modified tower uses an entire floor of the hall, all the partitions are removed, and a whole row of thick and long pillars are lined up to support the high ceiling. There is only a large round table in the middle of the spacious space without any other furniture. The far wall is all covered with huge glass, surrounded by a sky that reaches 30 stories high. And because the ceiling is unusually high, the entire space is like a temple in the sky. More and more gods are showing up here. Hee, but there are also many gods missing. The number of gods sitting at regular intervals around the circular table is over 30 at random. In other words, there are so many familiar in Orario who have members who are powerful enough to compete with high-level adventurers of level 2 or above and whose strength is recognized. Various gods attended the meeting. There is a male god with his mouth tightened and unable to hide his nervous expression, a mysterious figure wearing a giant elephant mask, and a silver-haired goddess with eyes slightly closed and smiling, waiting for the meeting to begin. Then, let's begin. There was a long, drawn-out sound. The originally noisy round table fell silent. The person who spoke stood up, his red hair flowing. I don't know that the 1000th meeting of the gods has officially begun. The master of ceremony this time is me, Loki. Please take care of me. Yeah, there was a burst of warm cheers and applause. It was truly an unprecedented event. Loki, who tied his vermilion hair back on his head, raised his hands with a smile on his eyes. Well, first of all, it's information exchange. Does anyone want to tell you something interesting? Yes, doesn't the most interesting thing happen to the Loki family? That's right. I heard that your child 9 demons was confessed to by a LV1 boy. It's better to confess your love in public. It's really romantic. If it were me, I might just agree. The male god's teasing voice and the goddess's nymphomaniacal voice rang out in the hall, and Loki's face looked a little ugly. Hephaestus, who was also a participant in this meeting, shook her head helplessly, while the silver-haired goddess of beauty Freya slightly raised the corners of her mouth to reveal an unknown smile. It seems that your name has been spread among the gods, you. And just when the conference venue was noisy and the gods were talking about it, the door of the hall was suddenly pushed open. The lively hall suddenly fell silent, and everyone looked at the uninvited guest who suddenly appeared at the door. You seem to be discussing me? It seems that I came at the right time. With a faint smile, you looked at the stunned gods and said this, waving his hand to scatter the remaining ice chips in his palm to the ground. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Shang. Chapter 76. Who are you and how did you get here? Such an important meeting among the gods naturally has many guards outside. Under normal circumstances, as long as the meeting has begun, no one is allowed to enter, not even the gods. This young man who suddenly broke into the house seemed very strange in the eyes of the gods, and no one had any impression of him. Obviously he is not a god. If he wasn't a god, wouldn't he be an adventurer? The adventurer actually came here to cause trouble. How did the main god of his family teach him? When the gods present were thinking so unhappily, Loki, who saw Yayu, screamed extremely rudely. Yayu, what are you doing here? Well, Loki, do you know him? Could it be someone from your Loki family? It's so unruly. The gods started talking, and Loki waved his hand to calm them down. Are you all idiots? This guy is the person you were talking about at the beginning, the child who confessed to my child Reveria. Oh. Following Loki's words, all the gods present showed interest and a good show. They began to be curious about what Yayu was doing here. You must have been beaten by Loki because of your relationship with Reveria, and then you felt angry and came to question her in person, right? You're such a courageous kid. I'm optimistic about you. Come on. Why don't you think about it? There is no grass anywhere in the world, so why don't you hang yourself from a tree? Yayu, who was already prepared to face the anger of the gods, was dumbfounded for a moment. He suddenly felt that he had thought too much. The gods of this world seem to be a bunch of idiots. Why do I want to compare theory with this group of people? Yayu suddenly felt a sense of powerlessness and stood there for a moment not knowing what to say. Loki clicked his tongue in dissatisfaction. The reason why he was like this was not because all the gods were being funny. Although living in the lower world for a long time has caused most of these gods to lose their majesty, gods are gods after all, and they will still show their majesty when their own interests are at stake. The reason why these gods behaved like this when Yayu appeared was simply to watch the excitement. Anyway, he has nothing to do with his own familia, and he can still see the jokes of the Loki familia, the most powerful familia in Orario, so why not? You bastards, stop causing trouble and shut up if you don't understand the situation. Loki couldn't help shouting angrily at the gods around him, but the gods didn't care and continued to laugh and make noise. The whole hall was filled with a happy atmosphere. Okay, this is enough of a joke. Young man over there, you still have to bear the crime of trespassing on the meeting of the gods. Whether it's you or the god Hestia who didn't teach you well, you must accept the punishment. A male god suddenly said this, and his majestic voice echoed in the hall, making the other gods quiet down. All kidding aside, the meeting still has to go on. Get him out and get ready for the next program and start the naming ceremony. Another god said this, but there was no response for a long time. After all the people in the conference hall were gods, and they were just ordinary people in the mortal world. Naturally, no one took any action to drive Yayu out. There has been no news about the guards guarding the outside. It seems that they were easily eliminated by Yayu. Ah, really, why are you so ruthless? It's rare that the protagonist of what you just discussed appears in person. Let's listen to what he wants to say. Maybe it can also inspire us. After all, this is the first time in hundreds of years that such a bold adventurer has appeared in front of the gods alone. I think we can make an exception for him, don't you think? With a refreshing fragrance, the silver-haired goddess stood behind Yayu at some point, wrapped her hands intimately around his body, and pressed her entire chest against him. Freya poked her head out from Yayu's shoulder, with a coquettish smile on her face, making everyone present, both men and women, in a daze. Freya's beauty does not distinguish between men and women. Her bewitching beauty and unique temperament are enough to make anyone or even a god fall for her. Loki, who was standing on the podium, frowned slightly, with an uncertain expression on his face. This guy Freya, could it be that the child she likes is Yayu? I think what Freya said makes sense. We should give this brave young man a chance. Come on, boldly say what you want in front of the gods. If it is to declare war on the Loki familia for love, then we are all your witnesses. A male god said this with a serious face, and the words declaring war made all the gods present slightly stunned. Declaring war on the Loki familia? A war game? It's fun to watch now. How long has it been since the Loki familia received a challenge from a war game? In other words, how long has it been since they lost in a war game? Hey, do you want to declare war? We are all your witnesses. The gods became noisy again and encouraged Yayu, while Loki stood there with his hands folded and stared at Yayu with an unhappy expression. Brat, I hope you don't do anything stupid. No. I will not launch a war game against the Loki familia. I will not use such methods to force the girl I like to leave her family. I came here today just to ask the gods to abolish a rule. The rule that members of different families cannot marry. Under the expectant gazes of the gods, Yayu spoke with a faint smile, and the entire hall fell silent, including Freya, who was behind Yayu. They were all stunned by the bold declaration. Abolish the rule that members of different clans cannot marry. Are you kidding me? Once this regulation is abolished, wouldn't everything be in chaos? Leaving aside the issue of children in the future, as far as adventurers from two families become a family after getting married, which family should they belong to after getting married, and which side should they belong to? Husband and wife are a family and must live together, but members of a dependent family are also a family and must live together. Is it possible that the two adventurers who got married have to leave their families and move out? Once two members of different families get married, there will be a series of troublesome events. Therefore, in order to solve the problem once and for all, it is the best course of action to prohibit marriages between members of different families. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 77. Do you know what you are talking about? What qualifications do you have to question the rules set by the gods? Looking at Yayu standing there, Hephaestus spoke slowly. She looked helplessly at the child of her friend's family clan. Hephaestus felt that she already understood Yayu's character, but it was obvious that this young man had given her another big subversion today. This can no longer be said to be a matter of pride or high self-esteem. This is simply lawlessness and ignorance. It is true that after being in the human world for such a long time, the majesty of the gods has long been thrown away, but this does not mean that mere mortals can point fingers in front of them. Yayu's behavior was undoubtedly disobedient to the gods. No, I'm not questioning this. I'm just making a request, asking the gods to modify this unreasonable rule. I know what you are thinking, but obviously this is impossible. If it is what you said, there is no need for the dependent clan at all. There is no need to compete and no effort to make money. All the gods will form a joint dependent clan together. All right. Isn't that a good idea too? Yayu narrowed his eyes and answered with a chuckle, while Hephaestus spoke extremely seriously. The gods come to the mortal world to give people gifts so that people can hone themselves better and rely on their own strength to fight monsters to survive. We will not go back to protect people who are not enterprising and have nothing to do. People who want to get something for nothing will not be redeemed. Hey, did we have such a great goal when we came to the mortal world? I was just bored and wanted to have fun. Hush, keep your voice down and maintain your dignity in front of mortals. But unfortunately, after Hephaestus finished speaking, a burst of whispers rang out from around her, causing her serious expression to collapse. Well, although Hephaestus thinks so, your colleagues don't seem to have this consciousness. Yayu shrugged in a funny way, and Hephaestus, unable to refute, could only glare bitterly at the gods who spoke. Hephaestus put her hand on her forehead helplessly. She knew that she couldn't convince this man. I'm afraid Hestia was the only one who could stop him from continuing his nonsense, right? I'll take the first step. After saying these words coldly, Hephaestus immediately stood up and left the table. Yayu, who knew what she was going to do, didn't stop her. Hestia would definitely know about it anyway, so Hephaestus could just report it. All he needs to do now is to solve the problem before Hestia arrives. When Yayu lowered his head and thought, Loki's voice sounded again above him. I know what you are thinking, but even if the gods present agree to change this rule, I will not just entrust the children of the Familia to outsiders. Let me make it clear, the weak Hestia Familia is not worthy be my child's lover. Weakness and strength can't be explained with words. Seemingly dissatisfied with Loki's words, Yayu sighed helplessly. His palm slowly tightened, and immediately a creepy chill spread in the hall. The gods who felt something was wrong all shrank their bodies, and were immediately surprised as to why the temperature suddenly dropped. At this time, Yayu spoke again. It looks like this war game is still going on. The tone was no different from that time, causing Loki to slowly frown as he listened. The opponent's tone of victory made Loki very unhappy. If you want to fight, I will naturally accompany you, but are you sure you can afford the price of failure? If you win, Reveria belongs to you, but what if you lose? When Loki said this, Yayu frowned slightly. I said, I don't want to use Reveria as a gambling chip. This is disrespectful to her. I will not ask Reveria to leave the Loki familia. If I win, I hope the gods can make an exception for Reveria and we will not change the fact that marriage between different families is not allowed, but we will make an exception for Reveria and me. Hearing what Yayu said, Loki was slightly startled, with a look of embarrassment on his face. But she quickly adjusted. You think too simply. Love between different families will eventually cause a lot of troubles. Even if we make an exception for you and Reveria. After saying this, Loki's tone softened a lot. She paused slightly and then continued. You are right. I will not casually use the children of the family as chips to gamble with others, even if it is an absolute victory. Such behavior is a great disrespect for Reveria. So, even if the conditions for victory are changed to what you said, what price can you bear? The price of your failure. Don't say that you and Reveria will never see each other again, it makes no sense. If I lose, I'll leave it to you. Yeah, you said so lightly, and Loki showed a funny expression. Let me dispose of you. Do you overestimate yourself? You are just a LV1 adventurer. What's the point of me disposing of you? Loki said this with a somewhat amused expression. Your life is not valuable, and you are not qualified to negotiate terms with me. That's right, even if you are playing a war game, you have to make corresponding bets. Obviously, whatever you want to do with it cannot be equal to the conditions you proposed. After Loki finished speaking, a god also spoke, while Yayu frowned. He didn't expect that he would be troubled at this point. Just when Yayu didn't know what to do, a not loud but extremely firm voice sounded from outside the hall. Additional bet, the entire Hestia familia, including myself as a god, works for the Loki familia. Is this enough? Hestia, what are you talking about, are you crazy? Hephaestus, who went to find Hestia to persuade Yayu, her eyes widened in surprise. She never expected that Hestia would say such words. However, Hestia paid no attention to Hephaestus. She stepped forward and stood next to Yayu, staring at Loki and repeating what she had said word for word. Is this bet enough? The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 78. Hestia, you. Yayu's mood seemed very complicated when his main god would say such words. This is just my own willfulness. Why should I involve the Hestia familia? Gently hugging Hestia, Yayu sighed and said. He suddenly felt that he felt sorry for Hestia. If he hadn't been so stubborn, maybe Hestia wouldn't have come here and said such things, right? What are you talking about? Yayu is a member of the Hestia familia. Now this 10,000-year-old flat-chested goddess looks down on you, but she also looks down on our entire Hestia familia. Hestia said, turning her head and pointing at Loki who was standing on the high platform. Little dwarf, who do you think is the 10,000-year-old flat-chested goddess? Humph, do you still need to ask about this kind of thing? How shameless you are, Loki. But, you damn stinky dwarf, are you serious? Yes, I'm serious. What about you? Do you dare to accept my challenge and launch a war game, Loki? Ha 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 ha, are you kidding? Why don't I dare? Since you are willing to bring the entire Hestia family to my family to work as cattle and horses, why wouldn't I do it? As Loki finished speaking, a voice burst out from the gods again. Then under the witness of the gods, both parties reached a consensus that the war game between the Loki familia and the Hestia familia will start on another day. After the war game between the clans was settled, the feast of the gods started again. After all, the most important thing, naming the new adventurers, had not yet begun. But these next things have nothing to do with Yayu and the others. When the feast of the gods started again, Yayu had already left the Tower of Babel with Hestia and Hephaestus. Have you understood why I called you here? Even if you doesn't know the seriousness of the matter, don't you know it either, Hestia? You still agreed to such a bet. Do you want to will the entire family be destroyed? Hephaestus said this with a look of helplessness, and she suddenly felt that she might as well not call Hestia. If Hestia hadn't come, you, who couldn't pay the corresponding bet, might not be able to decide to play this war game. It's better after Hestia arrives. The war game is inevitable, and if you lose, you will have to pay a heavy price. To be honest, Hephaestus couldn't see where Hestia had a chance of winning. Maybe Yayu was very strong and couldn't be regarded as LV1. He even said that he could defeat LV5 or even LV6 adventurers, but so what? The war game between the family members is not a platform to show individual heroism. It is a game in which the entire family members use their strength and rely on strength and wisdom to win. Personal bravery may be important, but it cannot play a decisive role. And when it comes to personal bravery, the Loki familia is not inferior to this one. After all, they are a powerful familia with 4 LV6s. Well, anyway, there are only 3 of my family members including myself. Hestia smiled nonchalantly, looking very confident. Besides, as long as you win, won't there be so many things? Win? What are you going to do to win? Don't be too naive, Hestia. What you are about to face is the challenge of the most powerful familia in Orario. I don't see where you have any chance of winning. Are you the strongest? This way, the challenge will be more valuable. If we win, the Hestia familia will become a coveted family, and many adventurers will be willing to join us. Bar. Well, that's right. The name of the Hestia familia will definitely become very famous by then. You too, hey. Looking at the 2 people who were laughing as if they had won the war game, Hephaestus sighed helplessly. At this point, nothing she could say was of any use, and all she could do was say, "Come on. I hope that the next time we meet, you can still stand in front of me as the main god of the Hestia familia." Yes, it will definitely happen, I believe you. Good luck to you then. Hephaestus said this with a gentle smile, then turned and left. Thank you, my dear friend, Hephaestus. Watching Hephaestus leave, Hestia clasped her hands on her chest, closed her eyes and spoke softly. On the other side, at the base of the Loki familia, not long after setting off on the expedition, they were urgently recalled by their Lord God. When everyone looked surprised and didn't know what was happening, Loki, who had returned from attending the meeting of the gods, told the news about the war game with an unhappy look on his face. Hey, how could this happen? Reveria looked troubled and didn't know what to say. As for the war game, then is there a chance to fight Yayu? Isai tilted her head, looking eager to try. Hinging. In response to the twin sisters' teasing, Reveria deserved to smile helplessly. Stop joking at times like this. No matter what, this is a challenge. For the challenge of our Loki familia, no matter who the opponent is, we must go all out. Let them know that the Loki familia is not an existence that everyone can despise. Findanner, the leader of the group, stood up and spoke slowly but firmly, while Reveria's face turned ugly. Rivalia, if it's not convenient for you to take action, you don't have to participate in this war game. Loki looked at Reveria and said this, and the latter shook her head gently. No, before I face my emotions, I am the 9-demon princess of Loki familia. I will definitely participate in this war game. Well, then don't let it go. Loki curled his lips and smiled evilly. That's natural, for the glory of Loki's family. Reveria said extremely seriously, and her companions also began to discuss the specific arrangements. No one noticed a person sitting quietly in the corner. The corners of the mouth of the young man with white hair and animal ears were slightly cleft, and his eyes revealed unforgettable hatred. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Shang. Chapter 79. The whole city is bustling with activity. The news that the Loki Familia, the most powerful Familia in Orario, accepted a war game from a little-known Familia, caused a huge sensation as soon as it spread. On the day of the war game that everyone was looking forward to, Orario was enveloped in an unusually fiery atmosphere. Early in the morning, all the wine shops opened their doors, and vendors could be seen on the streets. The walls near the street were covered with countless colored parchments, driven by the gods who feared chaos in the world. As for the content on the poster, the Joker's graphic symbolizes Loki Familia, while the Hestia Familia without a badge is replaced by a snowflake. Today only, almost all the adventurers stopped exploring the maze and instead poured into the wine shop to prepare for the battle. Workers and ordinary citizens who had tried their best to apply for holidays also came to the streets or central squares, impatiently waiting for that moment to arrive. Well, good morning everyone, I'm glad to meet you all. I am responsible for the live broadcast of this war game. Ibuli from the Ganesha Familia is known as the Fast Talker. Archer, also known as Fire Flame Burst Flame, please support me a lot. A slightly exaggerated stage was casually set up in the vestibule of the guild headquarters. A young man with brown skin introduced himself. He held a loudspeaker made of magic stone in one hand and claimed that he was the host of this war game. It was also packed with people. The explanation will be left to our main god, Lord Ganesha. Lord Ganesha, do you have anything to say? I am, Ganesha. Okay. Thank you Lord Ganesha for your wonderful speech. Next to Ibuli, who was in charge of hosting, the male god Ganesha wearing a huge elephant mask shouted, and the audience also cheered. Through cooperation with businessmen, the war game that makes the entire city agitated can be said to be a kind of performance. In order to enjoy this performance, many spectators came from far away from the city, so it is natural to charge an admission fee. Not only that, the guild also used it as a demonstration to show Orario's strength to the world, hoping to attract potential adventurers to enter the city. However, the most important point cannot be ignored. War games are one of the unparalleled entertainments sought by the gods. The 30th floor of the giant white-walled Tower of Babel. Most of the gods who were looking forward to the war game more than anyone else came to the Tower of Babel, and the two main gods who conducted the proxy war Hestia and Loki were also waiting here. Beyond that, there are a handful of gods who take different actions. Some of them rushed to the wine shop and mingled with the adventurers, while others stayed at the stronghold to watch the development of the situation with the family members. I knew you would choose a competition method like an arena battle. Forget it, I will let you do it as a mercy. After all, if there is to be a siege battle, there are only two of your clansmen. One man attacks the city and one man defends it. Loki said this disdainfully, while Hestia remained silent. The so-called war game is just a general term. In fact, the specific method of competition is also discussed by the gods. Generally speaking, it is a large-scale siege battle. The families of both sides guard two ancient cities and engage in a melee involving hundreds or even thousands of people for several days. I have to say that it is very entertaining and interesting. As for the arena battle, it was slightly inferior. As the name suggests, the two families send their own adventurers for a one-on-one duel. In fact, Loki still wants to conduct a siege. After all, no matter how strong Yeyu is, he will be unable to do anything against thousands of adventurers from the Loki family. However, due to the obstruction of a certain person, the game mode was determined to be a challenge. War. Tisk, but it's not a big problem. Even if it's an arena battle, I can still deal with you. Freya was far away from the gods. She came to the window and looked at the lively scene below. She couldn't help but purse her lips and reveal a faint smile. Remember, you owe me a big favor, Yayu. Yayu, who was getting ready to participate in the war game below, couldn't help but tremble. He regretted it even more now. What kind of war game is this? This is simply a monkey show for others to see. Along with Yayu's helpless sigh, the host's voice rang out. Then let me introduce it again. The two sides of this war game are Hestia Familia and Loki Familia, and the format is an arena battle. The warriors of both camps have already gone to the battlefield. Just wait for the bell to ring to announce the arrival of noon. The circular windows, which vary in size depending on the venue such as a bar or street, reflect the appearance of an arena. The whole city suddenly became excited, and the host began to explain the summary of the war game through the loudspeaker. Is everything ready? If you hesitate any longer, you won't have the chance to place your bet. Bathed in the sound of commentary coming from outside, in many wine bars along the street, gambling organized by adventurers and businessmen was going on in full swing. Naturally, what they were betting on was who would win or lose between the Hestia Familia and the Loki Familia, that is, which side would win the war game. People who had placed large bets clutched their gambling tickets tightly, leaned against the table with wine, and stared at the mirror placed in the void by the gods for live broadcast. Everyone, please pay attention, the time is about to enter noon. The host's voice rose a few degrees. The noise spread like a wave in the vestibule of the guild headquarters. Whether they are adventurers, wine shop clerks or gods, everyone's eyes are focused on the mirror at this moment. Immediately, the war game officially begins. At the command, the ringing of the big bell and the cheers kicked off the battle. The format of the competition is an arena battle, and what is determined is that the families of both sides will fight until the last person is standing. However, because there are only two members of the Hestia Familia, or in other words, only Yayu can actually fight, so the actual battle situation is Yayu alone vs the entire Loki Familia. Of course, although it is said that one person is fighting against the entire family, in fact, if Yayu can defeat the 4LV6 members of the Loki family, the remaining adventurers will obviously not be his opponents. Come on, Master Yayu. Lily, who was a member of the cheerleading team, said this nervously. She was the first to experience such a big scene. Yayu nodded lightly and walked onto the ring. However, the opponent opposite made him slightly surprised. I didn't expect, the first enemy I have to face is you. Looking at Reveria standing in front of him, Yayu shook his head helplessly. Are you ready? I won't show mercy. A change from her normal state, Reveria spoke so solemnly. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 80. Is the first game going to be against the 9 demons, or Ario's strongest mage? Among the people watching the battle, the worried voice of the girl rang out. It's very disadvantageous, Mr. Yayu also uses magic to fight, which is really disadvantageous for Lady Reveria. Liu, who is also a pure-blooded elf, seems to have some understanding of Reveria. After hearing 11ER's worried words, she slowly spoke. How come? 11ER clenched her hands with some worry and stared at the mirror in front of her. Seeing the girl look like this, Lu sighed slightly. With all due respect, 11ER, why do you care so much about this heartless man? What a heartless man. There is nothing between me and Mr. Yayu. 11ER defended with a red face, then looked at the upright figure in the mirror and spoke with admiration. I really admire Master Yayu. He pursues his love so bravely. Hey, silly girl. Listening to what 11ER said, he still didn't know what she wanted to express, so Lu hugged her tightly with some distress. On the 30th floor of the Tower of Babel, Loki, who was also watching the first battle begin, spoke triumphantly. Humph, it looks like the first scene will be over. If I remember correctly, that boy Yayu bothered Reveria to teach him magic not long ago. Oh, so what, someone is better than someone who is good at it? Hestia curled her lips and said nonchalantly. Humph, come on, no one can beat Reveria when it comes to magic. If I remember correctly, Reveria's most proud move is ice type, right? Suddenly, a voice sounded softly among the gods, attracting everyone's attention. The silver-haired goddess Freya walked over with a faint smile, making people look at her with every smile. Then, so what? Loki was speechless for a while when Freya said it, and then he stammered and asked. It's nothing, it's just that maybe this game will be much more exciting than we imagined. After Freya finished speaking, the first conflict between Reveria and Yayu officially broke out in the mirror. The battle between magicians is different from the battle between warriors. There is no amazing competition of skills, and there is no passion of swords, shadows, and fists. The battle between magicians is full of elegance and gorgeous pace. It is the collision of magic, and the competition of magic power reserves, like an intoxicating nocturne. To a certain extent, Reveria truly brought Yayu into the magical world, but when facing Yayu, she did not dare to be careless in the slightest. Because the girl understands that she cannot compare to Yayu in terms of magic power reserves. Since you can't match the opponent in terms of magic power, you can only use attribute restraint to overwhelm the opponent. Thinking like this, Reveria immediately determined the attribute of the magic she should use, which was fire. The next moment, the burning magic aura emanated from Reveria's body, immediately adding fire to the already fiery atmosphere of the surrounding audience. After looking at Reveria's actions, Yayu shook his head and showed a smile. Reveria, have you even forgotten this crucial point? There has never been a question of who restrains whom between ice and fire. All they have is who is stronger than the other. In response to Reveria's action, Yayu raised his hand, and the weird staff like a fire stick levitated in the air. With the appearance of the staff, there was a burst of laughter in the audience, because compared with the exquisite staff in Reveria's hand, the shape of Yayu's staff was really too shabby. Or is this fire stick-like thing really a staff? Ordinary residents and adventurers were laughing, but the gods in the Tower of Babel were not laughing. Everyone's expressions became strange after seeing the fire stick-like thing in Yayu's hand. That weapon is not something that should exist in the mortal world. This can explain a lot of things. Hephaestus's expression looked a little embarrassed, because she brought that thing from the god realm, and she didn't know what it was, but it was certain that this thing had very good magical properties. An excellent material for making wands. But what is a little helpless is that Hephaestus was unable to process it despite all the efforts in the god realm. As a craftsman, the god of God was helpless with this material that could make a perfect staff. Hephaestus naturally, this secret was hidden. So no one except her knew the existence of this thing. After coming to the lower world, even Hephaestus herself forgot about this thing over time. Then at that time, after being provoked by Yayu like that, and because she really couldn't make a weapon to resist Yayu's magic, Hephaestus remembered this thing and gave it to Yayu. The sound of flame explosions came from the mirror, and Reveria had already taken the lead in launching the attack. There was no need to chant at all, one blast after another of explosive flame techniques came straight down from the sky, and in an instant the entire venue was enveloped in thick smoke. What a terrible destructive power! Where is the LV1 adventurer? Is he killed? Lady Ju Mog is so merciless. Is the relationship between her and this adventurer just a scandal? People watching the battle through the mirror whispered this. On the stage, Reveria remained extremely vigilant and did not dare to be careless in the slightest. She knew best that her series of attacks just now were just a test at best, and Yayu had not released her magic power until now. Once Yayu releases his magic power. When Reveria was thinking this, she suddenly found that her thinking had slowed down. The girl suddenly felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and she raised her height in fear. Here it comes, this biting frost that makes people shiver involuntarily is more terrifying than anything Reveria has ever experienced. It turns out, do you still have reservations every time you practice? Yeah you. The flames and smoke slowly dissipated, and the unharmed Yayu appeared in front of everyone again. He narrowed his eyes slightly and raised his head to look at the sky, while the excited audience around him fell silent. For a moment, the whole city was as quiet as death.